Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're joining from in the world. Welcome to Decisions webinar, and happy Thursday to everyone. Just wanted to give a second or two for others to join. We do have a few pre-submitted questions on today that we'll go ahead and get started with as well. And if you are joining and haven't submitted a question on today, please feel free to do so by typing it in the chat or in our Q&A section, and we'll definitely try our best to get those answered for you on today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our first pre-submitted question here. Got a question that was from Null. Let's see if she's actually on. It doesn't look like she's joined yet. So let's hold off on that first question until she can come on over. Let's go to our second question. Let's see, it's Jake. Jake, this was a question submitted by Jake. It says, when pushing the repository, I am faced with a flow error. Circular reference, which makes sense since I have a landing starting flow that contains no end step. This landing starting page contains a subflow and a REST API. Once the subflow is completed, we hit the API and loop back into the subflow. The subflow contains a form that serves as a dashboard with multiple buttons that branch to other subflows. I am seeing a bunch of system errors under the logging tool stating that my landing starting flow is invalid when being executed, which is possibly due to the circular looping. And do you have any design ideas that could help? So Jake, if you would like to, you can come off mute and we can kind of talk through this.
Yeah, so basically I have that one main flow that serves as the parent flow, and inside of that there's a child flow, and that child flow has somewhat of a dashboard of buttons that branch to other child flows, and at the end of it we loop back and write to our database comment on the landing page, and we loop back to the child inside the parent flow. It's like a dialing system, and the parent flow is like a form with a list of numbers they can contact, and as well just like consumer tools, employee tools. So whenever they're done with one process, we want to loop back to the dashboard rather than killing the session and like ending the screen. Yeah,
I got you. One idea came to mind in regards to your process, and I know you said I'm assuming on your parent flow, you said you don't have a end step. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So my suggestion, that the only thing that I can come up with would possibly be to just add that end step, but also just put a rule before the end step that is checking for to see whether that particular subflow is completed, and is passing out maybe it's checking a particular data point inside that's coming outside of the subflows into the parent flow. And then what you can do from that is have it run through that rule. And if once it completes that particular rule, have it loop back to that subflow, and still completing the same process, still looping back through it, but having that end step may be the solution that it's looking for to help eliminate those errors.
Yeah. Do you see any potential issues with the amount of data being captured in the background from staying on the same session?
That's a good point. How much data is being triggered by those subflows?
Yeah, I know, like in the debugger, you know how it keeps the step list information. I don't know if that it still does kind of the same thing, but I mean, one person probably throughout a day would, I don't know, like 2,500 steps, and that's one person. There's about 300 people.
So yeah, that's definitely a massive, or can be add that up very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
so
I don't know a way to, end it without ending like the screen and kicking them off the parameter, the URL parameter they're currently working on.
Yeah, that's understandable. I do have some of my counterparts on the line on the call as well, that are here to assist on today. I'm not sure, based on that information, Tyler or Mark, do you think it would be some issues with the amount of data that's processing if he continues to loop through all of that data and the process never ends? Are there anything design tips other than what I've already mentioned that he could possibly do?
Well, there is some design tips you could do from a standpoint of being able to do some maybe run flows for lists and batch processing steps that maybe help you with that much data. What I would recommend is emailing support or creating a support ticket about a design pattern, because it's really hard to see on the call. And I can think of multiple different ways to do stuff in decisions. So it might be better just to be able to submit a support ticket on that. I could think run flows for lists, batch processing, thread jobs that might be able to increase performance instead of doing a for each loop over and over again, or maybe a batch processing for each step. There's a lot of different things you could do there, maybe help you out.
Gotcha. But like, I'm not really storing any data. It's mostly just hitting API calls. That's what I meant about the steps, but I didn't know how it adds up. All right, yeah, I'll look into creating a support ticket.
Okay, awesome. And sorry, I couldn't be asking your question to the give you a better idea of a better solution for what your problem is. But yeah, if you submit that support ticket, they'll be able to help walk you through more and see if there's any other solutions that could help your process out to eliminate those errors.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Can I also add that you can monitor that process in the profiler to see the load that it's taking on?
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at that. I was just.
Yep.
We're not seeing any speed issues or anything in that nature. It's just.
Okay.
I don't know what's being. Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Okay, great. Thank you for your question on today. Let's go ahead and continue with our pre-submitted questions. And I still don't see our first submitter on the call yet, so we'll give her some time to join. Let's go to our third one, which was, I have a form that can show hide controls based on how other questions are answered. If a question is hidden, the value is set to null. On submit, it sometimes shows an error, but not always. Is it possible to loop through the controls on the form in an active flow and set null values to an empty string. And that was submitted by, if I can get my list here. That was submitted by like Janice. If you can come off of mute as well, if you'd like. And kind of walk through if you could just walk through what you're experiencing, what type of error you're hitting.
Okay, so basically we have a like a question and answer system set up, and in our dev and our test environment, when a user submits the form, everything works fine. But when we got to production, when they try to submit the form, the hidden questions, they're returning a null value, and sometimes it throws an error and sometimes it doesn't. And because we were already in production, we had to pull it out because of that.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to figure out a way around that by just like, I guess, maybe looping through all the controls on the form, and whichever ones are null, just like setting them to a blank value.
Gotcha. Let's see here. So let's go ahead and see if I can kind of duplicate your process here, or at least a simplified process of it. I'll go in here and create a form. And so what we'll do is add a checkbox. Question 1. And we'll add a text box. And we're going to add a button down here at the bottom as well. So if we go inside of our properties panel here, have you created some, is it active form or
Yeah, we have active flows.
active flows? Okay. All right, so we'll just say, just drag a true rule out. Here. Choose as value change here. So let me go back in here and set up. Do show control here. Form data. Oh, show the checkbox. All right, so when we go out and let's just test this really quick, make sure it's set up properly. Gotta set it. 1 second, let me go back here and should I set this to visible? No. All right, so if this isn't selected, if the question box isn't selected, you want it to be able to pass out an empty string instead of a null value
Correct.
inside of the, let's see. One way you can do that. So on the form itself, let's see here. I got my question box. On the outside of the form in your actual flow. So sitting here in the flow itself, what is this set to any input at all?
We have a data type set up, and we pass that data type to the form, and then once on submit, it sets those values.
Gotcha.
But because it's trying to set some stuff to null, we can't get past the submit portion of it.
Let me see. Mark, Todd, do y'all have any suggestions on how to get an empty string value from there? I'm drawing a blank right now in the maybe have maybe we can do if the value is false. Let's go to our form rules and let's say we can maybe set
So-
the control value.
So Kevin, what are you trying to do here?
So here she's having the issue with the if a checkbox or if a selection is not made in an active form flow, to instead of it passing out a null value, to pass out an empty string value instead.
So I can take that back though and look at the matrix sheets to make sure.
I would say the easiest way to do this. And now, are you trying to take that null value and update it into a data structure, or what are you trying to do with it?
Yeah, because we have the data type coming out, and since it's passing a null value, we just need an empty string for the hidden fields, and otherwise it won't update it.
Yes. So what I would do on that is on that save step, I would run a converter flow. And on the converter flow, you can create the converter flow where if the object is null, it produces an empty string. And of course, if it's not null, it passes the correct value through. To me, that'd probably be the easiest way to do it. Actually do it on the save step. And then trying to do it on the actual active form flow. Now, what you can do here is you can set a static value on the data structure that might confuse somebody should they input it or not. So I would do it on the save step, honestly. Does that make sense? So go ahead, Kevin, go ahead and just save this. And just exit out of the form.
We can talk about configuration. We can at least maybe start that conversation on how to configure that ticket.
Add a selective update state for any data structure you have.
All right.
Thank you. So we trying
Yep.
change the name of the product. So you would recommend to
So
change
just
the
pick one of those, Kevin, and click on run converter flow. So run converter, and then pick or create a converter. This allows you to create new.
all accessories, all access answers on the top of the page. Those are
So you can pass data input on this. That could be your value of question. Let's call it, let's put string in there, Kevin. Yeah. And save it. Yep. And then run it. We have the search for object is null. Drag that out. Okay, if object is null, true. You do a create data step where it just creates the data you're looking for as an empty string. It's not null. And this create data string, the same name. The exact same, you got to do it the exact same capital S. And save it. And now it's constant, it's an empty string. Now drag the false path to the end step. And then click on the end step. And just select string. As you can see, there's only one output coming. It comes from both paths. This add in the string is null. So an object is null. Just add in the string value. What this allows you to do is take the string. If it's null, you produce a result that is just a blank string. If it's not null, you pass down the value it's given into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but how is that gonna? Would that go through all the properties in the data type, or would I have to do that for each one?
So I can jump in and answer that one.
Ryan, thank you, sir.
Yeah, so what we're looking at there is it kind of depends on how you pass it in. You can pass the entire object into that rule to evaluate, really, it's just, is there an object or is that value null, like as the entirety of the object, I suppose. And the other option is, as you kind of surmised, it's based on the field. So really, it's anything that you can pass into that value mapping right there, whether that be the entire object or an individual field. If you needed to evaluate multiple, I would probably put this on a list where it's for each, field on there. You could use the count of fields on the object and go that way.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Janice?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan, as well, and Tyler. Let's go back. I see, well, I did see, no, there we go. Now I joined, and there was a question that she submitted earlier. And it says when pushing, actually, no. For the drop-down list, if I select the default value, it forces the system to select output only. For example, I have a drop-down list and choose list input source static and list items, GAL and BBL. However, I always want GAL to be defaulted value, but once I click static default items, the output only also gets selected. Is there a way to unselect output only and still have a default item? And if you're here, you can see you're joining. You can come off mute as well. But I'm going to go here. I had initially started trying to play around with this as well. So I'm just going to drag a form here. I'm just going to quickly try to recreate this. And so you see I have here that drop down with GAL and BBL, and then the static default item selected as GAL. And you were saying if you select the default item, that the output only gets selected as well. And you're trying to prevent it from selecting the output only as well. And could you explain the result that you're trying to get from selecting the default item, but not the output data as well? If you're able to talk, I'm not sure if you're able to talk, and maybe you can type it into the chat. No, I see that you're.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, my recorder wasn't working. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Awesome, thank you. So I wanted to see like what were you trying to achieve by selecting the default item, and then with the output data, what you were trying to achieve there as well.
Sorry, like this audio is really bad, but what I'm trying to do, like, so when I have like a save layer option and submit option, and whenever I do save for layer, if, for example, if and choose BBL or GAL correctly, was go back to the draft, because it's always, even though it's it should change to BL. That's why I was wondering if there's any way to take out, and it's happening because the input only is also selected.
Okay, so I was able to get at least probably half of what you said, unfortunately due to some audio difficulties. But with the, as far as from what I can gather, and from just looking at it here, if you have a default item selected, no, it doesn't give you that option to not choose it as an output only and have that item passed out from the form. So I'm not sure if that would be possible. It doesn't look like it is, just based on what I've seen so far, unfortunately. But if someone else has a better solution, then please let me know. And I wish I could actually discern what you were trying to say. Could you type in the chat at least maybe if you have the GAL selected or one of the items selected, what were you trying to do with that item instead of I guess passing it out of the form as that selected item? And while she is doing that, let's see here. We have another submitted question from Jai Krishna.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, how you doing?
Very good. How are you?
Doing great.
All right, I can explain the question. So basically, I have a flow execution extension data structure, right, with a bunch of properties, and all works beautifully well, right? So no issues with that. All right, and then I have another defined data structure, right? And which is basically containing, it's a composite data structure where I'm taking some pieces from that the fee structure I created and some from the other. So it's kind of a data structure that collects information from other places. So this is what I use, this defined data structure as a data source for my report. Okay, so I have a flow report data source where I return the list of this defined data structure. Okay, so now when I build a report off of this, the flow report data source, there is an option where I want to bring in the right-click option for this report, where I want to bring in all the entity actions associated with the flow execution extension, right? Which is one of the which is one of the primary key I have within this reporting data source. And what I was expecting out of decision is that I should be able to see the flow execution extension data source when I tried to do this right-click context binding, right? And I didn't see this data structure at all, right? So what am I missing? How do I bring it up so that I can associate one of the data point to the fee so that I can get all the entity actions associated with that? You're able to follow so far?
Yeah, so that's inside of, if I'm understanding correctly, you are you're trying to pull that information inside of the report builder, correct?
Okay, so first thing, so you understood the fee, right? The flow execution extension,
Yes.
right? I mean, we can do it right now. Can you just create one flow execution extension with, let's say, 2 properties? Yeah, just call them demo or something. Yeah. Yeah, name and age or something. And let's perfect. And let's name the data structure example fee, FEE, so that way we know we are dealing with that. Perfect. Thank you. And let's save. Right. So the moment you do it, you're going to see that the entity action configuration folder gets automatically created, right? Okay, I see it. Perfect. Okay, so now I want you to create another data structure, but this time it will be a defined data structure. It's not stored in database. So let's call this report example. All right, and let's put name, right? So let's assume the name from that example fee. I'm trying to use it. And let's assume that we have other bunch of properties here. And let's say you say title or something, right? Let's add a couple more. Yeah, and
and we'll do something.
Sure. Okay, sounds good. So now we have 2 data structures, okay, fee and this in-memory data structure. Okay, so now I would like to create a flow that returns the flow reporting data source, right? That one. Yeah, click. So let's choose it on the list. Okay, for reports, you see on the left. Yeah, exactly. That one, report data source flow. The one above that, yeah.
Okay.
So let's have one step here that create data, and then let's statically create 4 or 5 structures out of that. Yeah. That's called temp list, TMP list, and then the data type will be the example, right? No. The data type right there, second column. Yeah. Let's
from the structure. Okay.
Exactly. From the defined data structure. Yeah, not the fee one, the other one. The report example, the bottom one.
That one right
exactly. And make it as a list.
Okay.
And now you can statically define them. You can click on the pencil, and then let's add build array. Let's do that. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you can statically define it exactly. Now let's add a couple of records. That's fine.
All right.
Yep. Let's add one more. Build data is fine. Mm-hmm. All right, that's good enough. You removed it. That's fine. I mean, one element is fine.
Yeah, I'll just quickly do it. That was my mistake. Sorry
That's
about
fine.
that.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Okay. Can close from here and then return this lister as an output. So just drag it to the end. Yeah, and let's make that lister the output.
So from there, see this a template.
Yep. All right, so you have a reporting data source ready to go. Okay, you can X from here. Let's save this value or the flow. All right, let's make a report.
All right.
And yeah, normal report is fine. And then on the data source, choose the one that you just created.
Now, would this be the
It'll be under the flow reports. No, under the flow reports, scroll up. Yeah, choose that one. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to point out that so in this structure you have three elements, right? One of the element is name, which is a common denominator between this structure and the fee structure, right? So now you're trying to associate the name to that. No, not that way actually. So maybe what we should have done is that in your report example, we should also include the folder ID, because as I set up the fee structure, it's going to come up with the folder ID. Now I want to use that folder ID to associate it with the example fee structure, right? So that's what I would like to do. But anyway, I mean, I can show you the problem. No, that's fine. You can stay right here.
Okay.
So can you click outside? Okay, and click on actions.
Okay.
Okay, can you expand the right-hand column a little bit so that you have more room? Perfect. Okay, so now click on this override action context. Okay, so now in the context type, so this is where, can you type in example fee? Because that's what I was hoping to see, but I didn't see in this list, right? That was my question.
Let's see. So you're trying to find that flow execution structure here.
Exactly, correct. That's the request. But interestingly, if I create a simple database structure, those show up there under context type, but not the flow execution extension. So what is so special about that? I thought flow execution extension is it's a super table, right? Where you get more bells and whistles, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't appear in this list.
Hey, JK.
Yeah, hi,
it's, Ryan. So what we're seeing here on this one, and the reason we can't pick the flow execution extension in that is a flow execution extension by its name extends a flow run. So there wouldn't be much to report on for that. It does, as you surmised, extend a flow with extra data. However, it is extending the flow. And so a simple database structure does have something that we can pull back from. Now, Kevin, you might be able to pull the action context of flow execution extension here. The type, just type in flow. We might be able to pull the generic, but more than likely, since we're trying to probably just initiate CRUD actions, is that correct? JK?
I'm not doing any CRUD actions at all.
Okay.
So basically, I have a couple of, context menus that I want to bring in as part of this report. That's what I was trying to do.
Okay, so essentially it's just actions regardless. I'm going to go ahead. And so while these are joint part of it, give me a moment here. There's going to be a couple sorts of like documentation joint here, but you are familiar with the override action context. So
Yeah,
the one I'm
I am.
sending is about FEE CRUD actions. In this case, it's just a flow. And so while the flow won't actually have to do those update actions, you can have it do what you'd like there. Now to get that to show in a report though, that's going to be a trickier one. You'd probably have to report on an actual flow data source, not the report data source flow. Give me I'll have to dig on my side here, but we should be able to pull that table, and then we'll have to do a join on the initial flow, but that should be doable. I'll just have to get back with some extra actions on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, bear with me as I look through this here. I can send an email, or we can create a support thing and go that way.
Yeah, either is fine. Yeah. So Kevin, so one thing in your example, all looks good except one thing in order to finish the loop. So can you X from here? You can save this report. And one thing we are missing was that if you go back to your reporting structure, what is that? Example report or something? What did we call it? No, not that one. The other one.
The main one.
Report example. Yeah, open that one. Let's add a field called folder ID, right? That's the folder ID of that example fee structure that I'll be pointing to. So it'll be a string. Exactly. All right. So this is what I'll be associating during the context binding.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you go back to your report, yeah. And if you click on add, so you should see folder ID in that list. Okay, so yeah, and again, if you click outside and open the action, and then if you can bring in that example fee under the context type, then I will be selecting. So can you click on the second field, the context field? That's where I'll be selecting folder ID. Yeah, so that's how I would be associating this folder ID value to that fee structure.
Gotcha.
Right? Yeah, that's the intent there. But unfortunately, I don't see it. But
yeah. If you could just Ryan is still
okay, sure.
trying to pull up some documentation on it.
Just digging through some things on my side.
But it may end up being a ticket as well, or in conjunction with anything that you can come up with.
Exactly. Any workaround is also welcome. So. Okay, I don't want to hold up the rest of the questions. So Ryan, if you could reply directly to me, or if you want to create a support ticket, either is fine. So let me know.
Yeah,
thank you.
Not a problem.
All right, thanks.
All righty, and let's see. Looks like we had one additional question from Alex. It says, is there any form widget that would allow me to navigate the decisions folder space and select a specific folder within it? I want my flow to create subfolders under the folder that I selected. Also, in previous versions of 7, a flow could not change the look and feel of a folder. Font color icon, is that restriction lifted in version 8? So going to your first question, is there any form widget that will allow you to navigate the decisions folder space? Let's see here. And you can come off of mute as well, Alex, if you like.
Thank you. Yeah, is the question clear? Do you need to know? Actually, I can tell you what I'm trying to do is
so your
projects.
You could definitely go into more of it, but from what I understand, you're asking if is there some type of form component inside of the form designer that would allow you to select or see a folder space that you have, I guess, very similar to over here to the left? Is that correct?
Yeah, I like to exactly navigate through that and
Mhm.
select one of those folders, so the flow can then create subfolders underneath.
Yes, to my knowledge, we don't have that capability, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan or Mark. But I don't believe that we have that capability in 7 or 8.
So yeah, like Kevin's
Is that
alluding to, there isn't a, if I'm following correct, there isn't like just a a button or two we could click to do it. However, something like that could pretty easily be built. I guess my question is are you looking to have a visual representation of the folder tree, like on a form in Decisions that a user could click in and I guess attempt to navigate, but they're on a form, they're not actually in the studio. The other option would be just a flow where you fetch a list of folders, put their names out, and have them click where they want, and the flow creates it. I can think of ways to do either. I just want to make sure I know which one you're asking about.
Mhm. Well, let me give you the use case. What I want to do is to scaffold the project, right? I usually put a folder for my data sets. I
Mhm.
have a folder for all the designer elements, and underneath that I have one for flows, one for forms, one for rules, etc., right?
Gotcha.
So I have the flow that builds all that, but it builds it in the current folder where I am, right? And I don't want to copy that flow every time that I want to create a new folder. I just want to select where I want to put this and run the flow.
Got it. Yeah, so in that case, you could very easily just use your existing flow if you've already got one doing it currently. That's kind of the tougher part, and that sounds like it's already built. So without seeing it, this is kind of just suggestions of the flow inputs, but it sounds like currently you're using, current parent folder ID or something similar to like as a location for that. What I would probably advise is adding a form or some input before that fetches and gives a list of all folders. Your user or yourself can then pick said folder, and in the backend, the first step in that flow would be get folder by name. So we would go grab the folder information, including its ID, and then you just pass that into your create steps where it's asking you where you're creating them. So that way you can just have it done once and dynamically just pick a new folder. We actually do something very, very similar internally here.
Sorry, I lost you. Hello?
I apologize. That was the end.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely doable. I would, to get you like an exact answer as to what change I would advise you to make, I'd have to see the flow. If you'd like to, I have no qualms taking a look now, but I don't also want to take up too much time from the rest of the meet. But
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people with questions, so go
yeah,
ahead.
a support ticket would work probably fine there if you'd like to get like some hands-on and get one of us to physically assist in that. This would not be a tough one, I don't think, especially if you've already built out the scaffolding logic itself that makes it. We just need to adapt some mappings to say not current folder, but this folder I specified.
Exactly, that's what I need, the hanging point of all this.
Yeah, you would use some steps inside internal services and folder service. I'd want to say it would be get folder by name is the name of the step. And so you could have a dialog box where your users type in that folder name, it fetches it in the backend, and then passes that ID into your create steps. So it's creating them under that folder's ID instead of the current folder ID.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
You're
Oh,
quite
sorry,
welcome.
do I have to? when I create a folder, is there the create folder step has a field to say which is the parent of the folder I'm trying to create?
So if you ignore that, I want to say it will just put it at root. Again, without seeing the exact one you're referring to, you know, I'm willing to be wrong, but typically for those like create folder steps, the parent folder ID, you could ignore it, and that will just place it at the root level. If
Yeah,
you
but
if
I
you
don't
do
want to ignore
specify a
it.
parent, yeah, if you do specify a parent, then it will just create it underneath that ID.
Okay, perfect. That's what I need.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
And last but not least, just like we have one other question. Or Jake, you asked, where do active form flows live? So you can locate them under the form dependencies. But when
Yeah, I was
searching
curious
the
if they
rule
live.
flow ID.
I was curious if they lived elsewhere other than just under the dependencies of the form, because I noticed when you search the rule flow ID for that active form flow in the search bar, you're returned with blank, you're returned with nothing. So I was curious if there's a folder in the system folders or something elsewhere that active form flows live, because currently and the reason why I asked is because I had an error with the flow ID not being inside production, because I created active form flow attached to a form, and for some reason it didn't allocate it to the project. So it had a blank project, which I'm assuming that's why it's not in there, because the ID is not being found. But I was curious if there's a location to see all active form flows.
You can actually get an answer there for you. So the active form flows, and really any data flows, visibility, any of those guys, they actually live in the same folder as wherever that form is. The difference is they're hidden by default. So if you look at that ID that you see in your error there, the rule ID, whenever you see a decision squid like that, and there is a period, and it's joining to another one, that means it's a parent child. And so that flow, in this case, the active form flow, only exists by nature of its parent. So to see this, you would want to go, Kevin, if you can click the gear icon in the upper right corner, or excuse me, you'll go to folder view first. I apologize. In the upper right corner, you'll need to go to folder view. And then you'll click the gear icon. And you see change report. If you click change on it, and then you go to with hidden is the one you want to look for here, and hit pick report. And so that will show you those.
Cool. Would you put the ID of the actual rule, or would you put the whole parent and rule?
So it's probably going to have the joined ID like that, but to get the exact one, you can treat it just like any other element in decisions. You can scroll down there, right click it, and hit that. So if you hit like right flow right there, you can grab it for, I think it's rule flow for you, Kevin, number 12.
Gotcha.
You can do manage get flow ID, I guess, in this case.
Yeah, I believe so.
And so that is the ID of this.
Nice. Yeah, I've been running errors with the same rule flow, but I found out for some reason, I don't know what happened, but it didn't set the project name for it.
I'm not sure off the top of my head if it would be required. It should come with the form. I would think there might be something else at play there, simply because I don't know if it's going to show it as part of the project. The tie is done again through those IDs right there. I know about that much at least. I'd have to again get back with an answer. I just need to consult with some of my developers to really figure out about the project name and how that works with the module resource table and things like that.
Well, yeah, I think I'm good on that now. I'm just gonna manually add it to the project, so I should be good. ID will be in prod then. Appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. It's just, it is hidden, as we don't typically want to expose those. Like they are a standard flow for someone to go edit when, while it behaves like a flow, you design it, the flow designer, those use cases on those are very, very specific, and they're very specific to that form. So we just, by design and safety's sake, don't expose those.
Makes sense.
They are there.
Appreciate it.
Of course.
Awesome. And just wanted to get, we are very near the top of the hour here. With approximately 5 minutes left in our time today. It didn't look, I'm just checking the chat just to make sure there were no additional questions submitted. But I do want to thank everyone for coming on today. And as always, you can catch us here Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern for our daily lunch and learn. And please feel free to submit any questions beforehand on any of those days. And join us each and every Monday through Thursday to gain more knowledge and more skills in decisions. And if there are no more questions on today, I want to wish you all a great rest of your week and happy weekend, and we'll see you next week. Everyone have a great day.
Have a good day.
You all as well. Bye-bye.